Welcome to Beyond the Fundamentals. In this video, we're going to do a word occurrence analysis of the words election and chosen. Welcome to Beyond the Fundamentals, and thanks for watching. In this video, we're going to do a word occurrence analysis of the English words elect or election and chosen or chose, and we're going to include analysis of the original language words from which these English words were translated. Now, before we get started, as always, I want to say a big, huge thanks to everybody that's supporting the channel financially. I'm astounded. Recently, we've had some people really sacrificially give to this ministry. And it's just humbling and awe-inspiring and astounding. So thanks so much for making this ministry possible on behalf of everybody who watches it. Now I also want to say a word of, I think this video has been, or this may be a set of videos, there's going to be one after this one too, at least one, maybe more, has been a long time in the making. And I think that Satan, some evil force does not want this information out. I know as I'm leading up to the time of filming this, I'm at the lowest emotional upset that I think that I've ever had in my entire life, and I'm kind of amazed that I can even compose myself enough to film this. So I covet your prayers for myself, for my family, for this ministry, and everything else. If you could do that, I'd appreciate it. And let's go ahead and get to this information and see what it's about. I'm going to start with a spreadsheet here. I've developed a spreadsheet of all the occurrences of the words election, how they show up. Now let me orient you to the spreadsheet. You can see the verses that I have, like Genesis 2, Genesis 3:11, and then over on the far left I have in column A the location column, and I put unique identifiers there for each verse in which these words occur so that they can be sorted, ascending or descending. Over on the left-hand side, you have 01 that stands for the first book of the Bible, the G stands for Genesis, and then the hyphen 006 is the chapter code, colon 002 is the verse code. So that tells you for Genesis 6:2. The reason I have that there is so that you can sort by verse through the entire Bible. If I just put numbers there, Excel would think it's a date or currency or something like that. So the mixture of punctuation and alphanumeric characters lets it stay like I want it to and lets me sort it up and down however I want it to. So I can sort it from A to Z and leave it like it is, and it'll go from Genesis to Revelation, or I can sort it from Z to A, and it will go from Revelation to Genesis, whichever way that I want. So that's how that works. Over here, I have the book column, and in the book column, you can pick whatever book you want. For example, you might want to see, hey, where are all the places that the word election shows up in the book of Romans? Now, these are going to be over here in alphabetical order, so I can select all to deselect everything, and I can go down to the book of Romans, and I can see everywhere in the book of Romans that this appears. And then say I can use the chapter here. Well, I just want Romans chapter 9. What are all the places that some form of the word election shows up in chapter 9? And there it is. I have one occurrence here. And sometimes when you do an analysis like this, it's amazing what's not there. Especially when you consider how this chapter is used, for example. So if I'm finished sorting that way, I can go back up to data and I can hit clear and I'm back where I started. And let's say that this time I just want to see what's in the book of Ephesians. And I can see Ephesians, and then maybe I can pick out a chapter, but there's only one occurrence in the book of Ephesians. I don't have to pick out a chapter. So you can kind of get an idea of how that works. So you can sort by book, chapter, and verse however you want. Over here, of course you have the verse, and in each verse next to the key word I have the Strong's number, in this case H977, and then in the OLW is the original language word. So down, and this shows you the Strong's number and the Greek or Hebrew word that is being translated into the English word, and I can select those. Let's say that I just want to see eklektos. I can click on that one, and then I just have eklektos. And then I can go back over here. Well, maybe I want to sort them in a different order, or maybe I only want eklektos in the book of Colossians, for example. So I can select that if I wanted to. And on you see, and if I get a book with a lot of chapters in it, maybe if I'm in Matthew or Acts or something like that, then I can sort by chapter and those sorts of things there. So that comes in handy as well to see where those words show up. You can get it all with the quick click of a mouse, and then we can always go back and clear that out. Now, everything from column K over, from the original language word over to the left, so the verse, the book, chapter, and verse, and then the location code, all that stuff is just data. That's all it is. Now, from the next column over, in column L over to the right, all of those things are subjective to me. Those are things that I have observed and I have put in there. For example, in column L, I have the selector. In other words, who's doing the selecting here? Is God doing the selecting, or is a human doing the selecting? Is an angel doing the selecting? And obviously, if I'm interested in soteriological passages, probably almost always it's going to be God as the chooser, as the passages that I want to examine. So I can probably eliminate all the ones where God isn't the chooser. All right, and then I can go over here to whom is being chosen, who is being chosen. And I can pick all those out. I can sort by those and I can see what they are. And maybe if it's not people being chosen, I can eliminate those as an option. And then I have over here why they are chosen. And if what I'm looking for there is something in the text that tells me why this selection was made. And sometimes this person's chosen to be king. Sometimes they're chosen to be a servant. Sometimes they're chosen to do something else. Sometimes it's implied and not specified. So these things are subjective things. I say subjective. They're not completely conjecture. All right? They're not guesses. They're as a result of my analysis trying to quickly apply the inductive method and come up with these answers. And then over here in the comments, I have my comments for what my resultant thoughts or analysis is of this particular passage. So-and-so chose so-and-so or this thing, and here's why. Now, here's how it does or does not impact the analysis into Calvinism. Does this or does this not support Calvinism, and why? Okay? And for all those, if we have new people out there listening, remember, because we oppose Calvinism, we are not Arminians, okay? We are not Arminians, we're not semi-Pelagians, we're not open theists, or any of that stuff. I want you to listen with an objective mind. So what we're trying to do here is objectively analyze every occurrence of the word. That's why this exists. And what you won't find in Calvinism is somebody doing a similar study that is this exhaustive, because they need to select things out on their own. They need to inject their own context. They need to take things out of the context. They need to have selective passages. They're not going to do a whole analysis, and there's reasons for that. In my comments, I have grayed out areas that after studying it myself, I have decided arbitrarily, based on my own analysis, that these gray areas are verses that do not affect Calvinism one way or another necessarily. There's not even a comment to make about how the word is used necessarily. Now that's my arbitrary conclusion, and you may analyze it and decide something different. And then all the comments that I do have are the conclusions that I do, some thought that may be helpful in understanding how this word is used to show that these words do not, in fact, support Calvinism after all, and here's why. So those are some of those thoughts. Now, this spreadsheet, you may think that this spreadsheet is useful, and if you do, if you already support this channel financially, thank you. You send me an email that says election spreadsheet request in the subject line, and I will send you a link where you can download this for free. For everybody else, if you're not a financial supporter of this channel, but you still want to get a hold of this, I am going to be posting it on Etsy for sale because this took a lot of work, okay? And that's another way to support the ministry. I'm putting this on Etsy for sale, and I'm going to put a link in the description below, and on the class notes page, there's also going to be a link to the place on Etsy where it's for sale, so you can purchase it there. So you might find this useful in your own study, and you might find this useful to have the work already done for you, and maybe you want to replace all of my comments with all of your comments, and that's fine. That's absolutely fine. Now what I've done next is I've gone from the spreadsheet, and I've, just for the sake of presentation, I've taken everything in the spreadsheet, and I've taken out all the gray ones, of course, and I put it all in PowerPoint so that this can be presented to a group of people who might want to hear about this. And we're going to look at that one next. So here is election, a word occurrence analysis. So my thesis of this is that the appearance of the words chosen and elect do not refer to anyone ever being chosen to be saved. Rather, they refer to the capacity in which a saved person is chosen to serve and the purpose of that servitude. And the second thing is they are chosen for the future blessing for which that person is chosen. This video is only intended to demonstrate that exhaustive consideration was given to every occurrence of these words in both English and in the original languages. Every time you start talking about election, Calvinists will throw a whole bunch of verses at you like, have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? Of course, yes, we have, okay? And this video is the proof of that. So even just with this video, if a Calvinist hits you up, have you thought about this and that, all these words with election, you can just post a link to this video and show them, yes, people on our side that are against Calvinism and Arminianism have looked at every single verse you can possibly think of. And here they all are. Here's the proof. Now, I will do a follow-on video after this one that's going to go into more in depth with very salient passages which demonstrate the findings that this finding that we're talking about. So I'm not really going to develop this thesis here. I'm going to talk about it a little bit, but I'm going to develop this thesis in a follow-on video about election being nothing like you were told in a video coming soon after this one. So I want to encourage you to do something. Since we're doing something systematic, and since I'm going to have a comment for just about every single verse for every single verse where the word election occurs, that it might have something to do with salvation, it might have something to do with or not for or against Calvinism, what you want to do is try to capture this yourself. Now, I use lots of Bible software, and I'm not being paid to advertise any software, so I don't want you to get that idea. But I use Word Search Bible, I use Logos, I use Logos, okay? If you're one of the erudite, snobby types, you got to say Logos, all right? But I call it Logos. You can, something that I like a lot, there's Blue Letter Bible, there's Bible Hub, a lot of things like that are web-based. One of the ones that I like the most because of its cross-platform availability and its cross-platform functionality is Olive Tree Bible Software. And Olive Tree Bible Software on my phone or on my iPad or on my computer, all my notes and my highlights and my underlines and all that stuff, it syncs across all my devices. And so what you might, if you have something like that, if you don't have anything like that, I recommend you get Olive Tree Bible Software so that at least you can capture your own notes in a systematic way like this. So I have two ways that I capture notes. You can do files and folders, so I have like a Calvinism folder and a bunch of notes that I put under that from discussions that I've had, online debates and things like that, things that came up, things that I typed that I thought were relevant. I want to save them for the future. I've got like a Catholicism folder, those sorts of things. And you can also put them per verse. Like I can make a comment on a verse. Like here I have a comment on Ephesians 1:4, and I've scrolled all the way down to the bottom because I have 49 notes on Ephesians 1:4, and then a comment to diagram the sentence at the bottom. But then there's something else down there I have is you can put tags on it. And the tag that is in this one that's relevant is I have a Calvinism tag. And every note that I make that has something to do with Calvinism, I can tag it as Calvinism, and then I can do a search in the app for all the verses or notes that I've made that have something to do with Calvinism. And for this video, you could take all the comments that we're going to show you, and you could doctor them up, make your own, or copy them just like you see them, and put these notes in your own Bible software on these verses and tag them with election or something like that. So you could do a quick search for the tag of election, and then it'll bring up all the notes in order, the verses that you want to see. So if you're in a debate with somebody, or if something comes up in a Bible class and you want to look at the note that you had for this particular verse, you can find it relatively quickly, and there it is. It's like having a digital Bible study all at your fingertips right there. So I highly recommend you get some Bible software. I think just about everybody has mobile computing devices such as phones, Android, iPhone, something like that. And you can exploit this Bible software to make things available at your fingertips should a relevant discussion arise or should you need it for your own study or whatever reason. Now, we live in a day and time, especially in the United States here, where we have more information at our fingertips, and we have the ability to catalog and collect more information at our fingertips than ever before. So I highly recommend that you fully take advantage of all the technology that we have where we can do these things. So this slideshow is fully functional with hyperlinks from verse reference slide to each of the verse slides. And I'll show you this in a minute. And there are also links from each slide back to the verse reference slide. Now, this is great in case you like to present this information to a group, but not necessarily cover every verse in order. Also, with the full slide deck in PowerPoint, you can modify the notes to say whatever you want them to say. If you want to tweak my comments to make them say something else because you don't like my comments, or you think you could say something better or more relevant, you could do that with this PowerPoint presentation. Once again, if you already financially support this channel, then send me an email with the subject line election PowerPoint request, and I will send you a link where you can download this whole file for free for your use wherever you want. And for everybody else, there's a link to where this can be purchased on Etsy. The link will also be on the website in the class notes section. So let's get to that part real quick. Let me show you the interactive feature of this. The interactive feature here, I have all the verses that you saw in the spreadsheet that aren't grayed out. They're represented on this slide. And if I want to go to any one of these, I can simply click on the verse and it will take me to that slide. So I just clicked on Isaiah 43:20 and it took me to that slide. Well, I'm done talking about that. Now I want to go back to that verse listing. I just click the link at the bottom of the slide and there it is. So I can pick any one of these and do it the same way. There's Deuteronomy 18:5. I show that and then I go back. So if you're presenting this in front of people, you can have this in front of them, and then if any of the verses come up where you want to talk about election, you have them all right here at your fingertips. And if you own this PowerPoint slide, if you download it, either buy it from Etsy or you already support the channel and I send you a link to download it, you can actually go into the PowerPoint slide and you can modify the comments and change the comments to something you think might be more appropriate than what I wrote if you want to present this in front of people. So I think that'll be a useful tool for you. So now we'll go back to where we were and pick up on the original language words that we're going to be looking at. Here's Strong's H977. The H stands for Hebrew, and it's bahar, all right? Bahar, something like that. There's 170 occurrences of this word, and it means to examine, to choose, preferred, tested, preferable, to be examined. And you can see how it's translated over here. These analyses over on the right-hand side come from the Logos Bible software. Strong's H972, Bahira, all right, and that's 13 occurrences, so not quite as many as the other one by far, and it means chosen or God's chosen or chosen one, and then you can see the translations and the senses in which that is used over on the right-hand side as well. And then we have Strong's 1568, and that is echlogamai, and it occurs 20 times, and it could be call, to name, to choose, select, pick out, and elect. And I have the root word down here, and the root word for all the Greek ones is the same, and then it has the translations and the senses in which that one is used. And the Greek word eklektos, it occurs 23 times, chosen, elect, picked out, select. And there's the translations and the senses in which it is used, which you can pause and look at those if you want, or you can download the slide deck and look at them if you want to take more time with those. And then Strong's 1589, eklege, and that's selection, choice, election. And the root word is the same, and you can see the translations and the senses. Now, as soon as you start talking about election, you start pointing out the fact that election never ever refers to anybody ever being chosen for salvation, there will be a few Calvinists who come up and pipe up with 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 13. And there are many reasons why this does not apply, and we'll talk about it briefly, but I have an entire video. Now, I looked at that video recently, and it's from a while back, and I wish I could do it again. I might do it again one day, all right? But it's from a while back, but it goes into the details of why this does not support Calvinism. And briefly to look at 2 Thessalonians 2:13, it is a different Greek word than all the other Greek words that are used for election and chosen, okay? This one only shows up 3 times, and let's look at how it's used. But we are bound to give thanks to God always for you, brethren, beloved of the Lord, because God hath from the beginning chosen you to salvation through sanctification of the Spirit and belief in the truth. And a Calvinist thinks that from the beginning there must be from, before the foundation of the world. But actually it says from the beginning, not from before the beginning, okay? But the beginning here is the beginning of Paul's ministry there, not the beginning of the foundation of the world. And so there are several different aspects. Earlier in the chapter, 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, there is the warning of the forgery. I beseech you, brethren, by the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ and by our gathering together unto him, that ye be not soon shaken in mind or troubled, neither by spirit, nor by word, nor by letter, as from us, that day of Christ is at hand. So there are 3 things that could forge a false message: a bad spirit, a bad word, or a bad letter coming their way, talking about the future in a bad way, and that future aspect is key. And they're saying something wrong. And so Paul is trying to set them straight on this wrong thing, that they don't have to worry about that. So there's the forgery. And then there's a deception that they have to worry about in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 10. When that man of wicked does come, he's going to have all deceivableness and unrighteousness, and them that perish. Why? Because they were not elect before the foundation of the world? No, because they received not the love of the truth. See, in Calvinism, people are arbitrarily chosen unconditionally before the foundation of the world, either for salvation or for reprobation. But in the Bible, it's because of things that occur in time and because of things that they do. Because they receive not the love of the truth, that they might be saved. And for this cause, God shall send them strong delusion, that they should believe a lie, that they all might be damned who believe not the truth, but had pleasure in unrighteousness. Now, if you're a Thessalonian and somebody's been writing false letters to you, you might flip out at that point and think that, oh no, these forgeries have caused me to believe a lie. I am one of these horrible people that have been condemned to believe a lie. My goose is cooked. And Paul here is reassuring them, no, that's not what's going on. And there's an aspect of the future here. So you see that word, chosen you to salvation, okay? There's a future aspect there. Remember, the beginning of the chapter is about the future aspect of salvation by the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ and by our gathering together unto him. How are you going to get to that, in other words? How are you going to get to that point? And that word salvation there is used not in the sense of conversion, not the time you get saved, but the time of the glorification of the body, how Peter uses it in 1 Peter 1, 5, and 9, who are kept by the power of God through faith unto salvation. Notice that word through faith, that's the vehicle, is faith, belief in the truth. Through faith unto salvation, ready to be revealed in the last time, receiving the end of your faith, even the salvation of your souls. So the salvation, the glorification aspect of salvation, when Jesus comes and are gathering together unto him, is a future thing. So God has chosen them to get there through something, all right? Now the other uses for this word, Philippians 1:22, Paul says, yet what I shall choose, I wot not. He's clearly talking about something he wants to choose. God's not doing any choosing there, so that doesn't apply for or against Calvinism. Hebrews 11:25, talking about Moses choosing rather to suffer affliction with the people of God than to enjoy the pleasures of sin for a season. So Moses there is choosing a path to suffer affliction. So that's not God choosing people for anything. So if this Greek word is used in a Calvinistic way, it would this would be the only occurrence of it. There would be no other example of it. 2 Thessalonians 2:13 would be the only thing you'd have to go off for the Greek word being used for this. Now, there are some lies going around. We see in Acts 15:1 that there are people teaching lies. And certain men which came down from Judea taught the brethren and said, except ye be circumcised after the law of Moses, ye cannot be saved. And then we see in Acts 15:24, when they're correcting this issue, James is telling them, for as much as we have heard, write these guys letters and say these things. We have heard that certain which went out from us here at Jerusalem have troubled you, Gentiles out there in Galatia and everywhere else, with words subverting your souls, making a catastrophe out of your souls, saying, ye must be circumcised and keep the law of Moses, to whom we gave no such commandment. So those are some lies going out there. There's some lies. There's a threat of deception. There's concern about the future. There are some forgeries from a spirit or by word or by letter going around with false information. And we know that some of the lies are that you have to be circumcised and keep the law in order to be saved. So what Paul is telling these people is that God hath from the beginning, from the start of our ministry, God has chosen you to salvation through sanctification of the Spirit and belief in the truth, not circumcision and keeping the law, or whatever else some lie might be told to these people. Have we believed the lie? Okay, and Paul's reassuring them, no, look, what we've told you from the beginning is the truth. Paul is not telling these people that they have personally been chosen to be saved. He's telling them that they've been chosen to get to glorification through belief in the truth and sanctification of the Spirit. Sanctification of the Spirit and belief in the truth. In other words, those are the vehicles that are going to get you there. And you could say 2 Thessalonians 2:13 to any lost person who stays lost. I could look a lost person dead in the eye, who I know is going to go to hell if I happen to be able to know that somehow. And I could say, God hath from the beginning chosen you to salvation through sanctification of the Spirit and belief in the truth. You don't have to keep the law or be circumcised or whatever else somebody might be saying, some other lie somebody might be saying, making them think that glorification is somehow something that they can't attain to, they can't get to. And Paul here is reassuring them that no, you have been told the truth. So you could say that to any lost person. This has nothing to do with individuals being selected to be saved. It has to do with people in that time period. Hey, we're not under the law anymore. And the appropriation method of salvation in the tribulation period, whatever that's going to be, that's not what's happening right now. Right now, we're dealing with sanctification of the Spirit and belief in the truth. That's what's going to get you to salvation ready to be revealed in the last time. So don't worry about all these other deceptions floating out there. If this is what you believe, you're good to go. That's what's happening there. So I'm not going to spend any more time on 2 Thessalonians 2:13. We can rule that out. It doesn't support Calvinism. If any Calvinist thinks it does, they're just admitting they don't understand anything about context. And if you want more information, you can go watch the other video on 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 13, where we go into more detail about that. So what I did here is I have a screenshot of the Excel spreadsheet, and from 224 passages, that's what the Excel spreadsheet is for, okay? From the 224 passages that contain the keywords, I can go through the criteria from columns L and M that can be used. Who's doing the choosing, who's being chosen, and why are they being chosen? What are they being chosen for? And I can narrow down to a select group of, if passages might have something to do with Calvinism, what might those be? And I can narrow it, and I've just used the criteria in the spreadsheet to narrow it down, and I think there's just 10 here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Just 10 passages. Now, 10% of 224 would be 22.4. So we're dealing with less than 5% of the passages that contain the word, form of the word election, might maybe have something to do with Calvinism, for or against Calvinism. And then if I look at the comments and the context and everything else, and I narrow it down even further, out of those 10, I can take it all the way down to just 2 out of those 10. That's what the data is good for. I can sort by the data that I've gathered from these passages and identify, okay, do these have something for or against Calvinism, and why? And I also need to know why I ruled the other ones out, which you could explain on a case-by-case basis. And here I have Ephesians 1:4 and 1 Thessalonians 1:4. Should be easy to remember those passages, those addresses. Because of the way these are worded, I have yellow comments over here. There is a high propensity for systematic co-opting and eisegesis. And on the second one, high propensity for systematic co-opting and eisegesis. So of all the passages that contain the word elect, these might be the best ones to focus my attention to refute Calvinism because of how they're used. The rest of them are fairly easy for fairly easy reasons to refute why they don't support Calvinism. And then we're kind of left with just 2. But for you today, as a special, we're going to go through all of them anyway. All the ones that aren't grayed out on the spreadsheet, we're going to go through them as quickly as I can to try to make this video as short as possible. So as we saw before, here is the entire list of verses that we had. And you can click on these and go to any verse you want if you want to present this in front of people. And I highly recommend you download this and do that. But we're going to go through them in order. So we're going to start with Strong's H977, Bahar, all right? To examine, to choose, preferred, tested, preferable, to be examined. And let's look at the uses here. In number 16:5, even him whom he hath chosen will he cause to come near him. This is sometimes cited by Calvinists, but this chosen is regarding the priesthood, talking unto Korah, and it is conditional. The obedient ones that aren't murmuring are chosen. The whiners are not chosen. This is the opposite of unconditional choosing in Calvinism. Number 16:7, whom the Lord doth choose. All right, this is a future tense thing that happens on the morrow. It's future tense. That choosing doesn't take place in eternity past. So that the fact that God chooses things in time invalidates the London Baptist Confession, chapter 3, paragraph 1, or the Westminster Confession of Faith, chapter 3, paragraph 1, where it says that God hath from eternity past chosen all things, whatsoever comes to pass from eternity past, he already chose them. Well, according to Scripture, God chooses things during time. And here, while this is being spoken, God had not yet chosen and would choose on the morrow. So God chooses things in time if you believe Scripture. If you don't believe Scripture, then this doesn't matter. But if you believe Scripture, God chooses things in time, and when this was spoken, was going to choose something on the next day, which is not good Calvinism. And Scripture never is good Calvinism. Again, number 17:5, and it shall come to pass that the man's rod whom I shall choose shall blossom. Now, whom I shall choose, God doing the talking here, is clearly future tense. God makes decisions in the future that he did not make in eternity past. God supposedly already determined all things whatsoever comes to pass before the foundation of the world, but that's not what the text says. Calvinists rationalize this by essentially remitting this to which the Lord thy God has already chosen but will reveal. So they believe in some kind of like a decretive will of God versus a revealed will of God, but the Bible doesn't have anything to say about that. It's just telling you what's happening. But that's not what the text says either. And Calvinists what they have is a scriptural authority problem. Yeah, you can rationalize anything away, but at the end of the day, what they don't believe is what the text says. In Deuteronomy 6:6-7, thou art an holy people unto the Lord thy God. The Lord thy God hath chosen thee to be a special people unto himself above all people that are on the face of the earth. The Lord did not set his love upon you, nor choose you. Now the subsequent verses show that the keeping of an oath to their fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, is the reason these people are chosen. It's not unconditional or arbitrary. It is in time, not in eternity past. Deuteronomy 10:15, only the Lord had a delight in thy fathers to love them, and he chose their seed after them, even you above all people, as it is this day. The Lord has a delight in thy fathers. That's not arbitrary or unconditional. Deuteronomy 12:5, but unto the place which the Lord your God shall choose. Now that should seem like God's choosing a place there. That has nothing to do with anybody being chosen for salvation. So why even comment on that? Well, the Lord your God shall choose. Clearly future tense. God makes decisions in the future that he did not make in eternity past. God supposedly already determined all things whatsoever comes to pass before the foundation of the world, but that's not what the text says. So Calvinists rationalize this again essentially by remitting this to what the Lord thy God has already chosen, but will reveal. They think, God will reveal his choice. That's not what it says, though. He shall choose is what it says. So Calvinists, again, have a scriptural authority problem when it comes to these matters. Deuteronomy 12:11, then there shall be a place which the Lord your God shall choose. Again, shall choose, future tense, not eternity past, not predetermined. Deuteronomy 12:4, but in the place which the Lord thy God shall choose, future tense, not eternity past, not predetermined. Lord thy God, Deuteronomy 12:8, Lord thy God shall choose, future tense, not eternity past, not predetermined. Deuteronomy 12:26, Lord thy God shall choose, future tense, not eternity past, not predetermined. Deuteronomy 14:12, and the Lord hath chosen. For thou art an holy people unto the Lord thy God, and the Lord hath chosen thee to be a peculiar people unto himself above all the nations that are upon the earth. Israel is always the precedent for the chosen people. Future or further occurrences of this concept that are unspecified should go back to this precedent unless otherwise stated in the context. In other words, when you see the word chosen or elect after Deuteronomy 14:12, you should think of Israel until something in the context tells you otherwise, because that's the law of first mention. And the law of first mention, once something is settled for the first time, it sets the tone for the rest of the uses. And so you don't want to just assume that it's always used that way, but that's what you're going to start with, and you're going to examine the context to see if the context tells you something otherwise. Otherwise, it's going back to the first use. So after Deuteronomy 14:12, whenever you see any passages about God's chosen people, the precedent has already been set. It's always going to be Israel unless something in the context tells you otherwise. Deuteronomy 16:16, the Lord thy God in the place which he shall choose, future tense, not eternity past, not predetermined. Deuteronomy 17:10, which the Lord shall choose, future tense, not eternity past, not predetermined. Deuteronomy 17:15, shall choose, future tense, not eternity past, not unconditional. Again, Calvinists have a scriptural authority problem. Deuteronomy 18:5, for the Lord thy God hath chosen him out of all thy tribes. The Levites were chosen to minister in a certain capacity, not chosen to be the only ones that are saved. So this choosing took place in time, not in eternity past. Deuteronomy 18:6, which the Lord thy God shall choose. Clearly, future tense did not take place in eternity past. Deuteronomy 12:21, for then the Lord thy God hath chosen to minister unto him. The Levites were chosen to minister in a certain capacity. Being chosen always has to do with service of some sort, not chosen to be the only ones that are saved. This choosing took place in time, not in eternity past. Deuteronomy 30:19, I call heaven and earth to record this day against you that I have set before you life and death, blessing and cursing. Therefore choose life, that both thou and thy seed may live. So unregenerate humans had the charge and capacity and responsibility to choose life. If they didn't have life before, it's not in a way that they couldn't choose. So they clearly were told to choose life here. And there's no reason to assume that somebody cannot be told to choose life and then also not have the responsibility for that choice. In Joshua 24:15, if it seem evil unto you to serve the Lord, choose you this day whom ye will serve, whether the gods which your fathers served that were on the other side of the flood, or the gods of the Amorites, in whose land ye dwell. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. The people are presented with a choice to serve the Lord with every expectation that they are capable of making that choice and responsible for making that choice. In Joshua 24:22, and Joshua said unto the people, ye are witnesses against yourselves that ye have chosen, you, the Lord, to serve him. And they said, we are witnesses. So the people chose to serve the Lord. This is not congruent with the concept of total depravity, and there's no mention of anyone being regenerated, which we're going to do. We're going to have another question and answer video coming up where we're going to talk about, were people regenerated in the Old Testament? No, they weren't, and we'll talk more about that in a future video. Your witnesses against yourselves shows that they are responsible for the choice they have made. Judges 5:8, they chose new gods. Then was war in their gates. So Israel, God's elect, by the way, God's chosen people, chose new gods. So they must not have been very elect in a Calvinist sense. Now, despite disobedience, they are still God's chosen people. And despite being elect, I guess they weren't, where's the perseverance of the saints? Shouldn't they be persevering in good works? Wouldn't the elect only choose good things? Okay, I guess not. They won't. All right, so the Calvinistic election isn't supported by any of these passages. Go and cry unto the gods which ye have chosen. Again, God's elect people chose other gods. No perseverance of the saints here. 1 Samuel 12:28, and I did choose him out of all the tribes of Israel to be my priest, and that's chosen to be a priest, not to be saved. It's capacity of service. All right, election, you should always connect it with servitude, being a servant in your mind, not with salvation. So chosen to be a priest, not chosen to be saved, and he's chosen in time, not in eternity past. In 1 Samuel 8:18, ye shall cry out in that day because of your king, which ye shall have chosen. Which ye shall have chosen you, and the Lord will not hear you in that day. So Saul was chosen by humans to be king. It's interesting that this choice is also attributed to God choosing Saul elsewhere in 1 Samuel 10:24 and 2 Samuel 21:16. There's 1 Samuel 10:24, and Samuel said to all the people, see ye him whom the Lord hath chosen, that there was none like him among all the people, and all the people shouted and said, God save the king. So he's here. So you have a human choice and one choice, who's going to be king, attributed both to humans and to God in the text. So that's kind of interesting, and you can see the references there and cross-reference that. 1 Samuel 12:13, now therefore, and by the way, that guy being chosen by God is never listed in the New Testament as a good guy or a saint, okay? A lot of people think he went to hell. Not 100% sure on that, but he's definitely not one of the good guys. Now therefore, behold the king whom ye have chosen. Again, attributed to human choice here, attributed to God's choice elsewhere. 1 Samuel 6:21, and David said unto Michal, it was before the Lord which chose me before thy father and before all his house to appoint me ruler over the people of the Lord. So David is chosen to serve as king here, not just to be the only person that's saved, but chosen to serve in that capacity. 1 Kings 3:8, and thy servant is in the midst of thy people, which thou hast chosen, a great people that cannot be numbered or counted for multitude. And this Israel's God's chosen people. It's a no-brainer. 1 Kings 6:18, someone's chosen to be king. In 1 Chronicles 15:2, the Levites are chosen to carry the ark, not chosen to be saved. In 1 Chronicles 28:4, we have somebody is chosen to serve as king. In 1 Chronicles 28:5, somebody is chosen to serve as king, not chosen as the only person to be saved. And also, Solomon is chosen to be God's son. That's interesting. So you could use that with not the inductive method, but inductive reasoning, and you could try to spread that across other people. But very clearly, Solomon was not the only person saved. And based on his apostasy, A lot of people call that into question. In 1 Chronicles 28:10, Solomon was chosen to build a house for the sanctuary, not chosen to be saved. In 1 Chronicles 29:1, you have somebody chosen to serve as king, not chosen to be saved. In 2 Chronicles 25:15, and found them 3,000 choice men able to go forth to war that could handle a spear and shield. Now, this choice shows how the word is used as preferred or tested, preferable, rather than arbitrary and unconditional. It's not a word with sacred, limited use. Okay, every time a Calvinist sees the word chosen or elect, they automatically think of Calvinistic implications. Now, I'm not going to develop this a whole lot now, but I have a suspicion that this word, 300,000 choice men, I have a feeling that the way choice men is used there is the same kind of way sometimes in the New Testament that it is used. Ye are a chosen generation, that kind of thing. That's just something to bear in mind. I think that there's something to that, and maybe in the future we can explore that. 2 Chronicles 29:11. Being chosen has to do with the capacity in which one serves. My sons, be not now negligent, for the Lord hath chosen you to be saved? No, to serve him, to stand before him, to serve him, and that you should minister unto him and burn incense. Okay? So they're chosen to serve in a certain capacity, and my contention is that every time someone is chosen, it is to serve in a certain capacity. Nehemiah 9:7, thou art the Lord God who didst choose Abraham. So Abraham is not the only person concerning salvation as far as that goes. Melchizedek has a following larger than Abraham, and Abraham was chosen to be and to do something. He didn't get imputed righteousness until he exercised faith. Genesis 15:6. So Abraham was a descendant of Shem and an adherent of Melchizedek, and the choosing takes place in time. It's not unconditional election before the foundation of the world. In Job, have several passages here which just show the obvious human ability to choose things. And then Job 34:4, let us choose to us judgment. Let us know among ourselves what is good. There's a human conspiracy. Conspiracy just means breathing together. Okay, it does not always mean a bad thing. It just means getting together and deciding something together. A conspiracy can be out in the open sometimes, and it's perfectly fine, legitimate, and legal. All right. But you have a human conspiracy to choose judgment and to seek after something good. It's not exactly total depravity here, or nobody is thinking in those terms. In Psalm 33:12, blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord, and the people whom he hath chosen for his own inheritance. That's referring to the nation of Israel, not Gentiles after Acts 2. The me-centered, self-exalting, egotistical Calvinist always sees themselves or their self in such passages. Blessed is the Lord, God chosen for his own inheritance. Oh, that's me. No, it's not you. It's Israel, okay? Stop being so self-exalting and egotistical. It's not you. Psalm 65:4, blessed is the man whom thou choosest and causest to approach unto thee, that he may dwell in thy courts, who shall be satisfied with the goodness of thy house, even of thy holy temple. Everything here is terrestrial. Those who dwell in thy courts were continually busy with service. It is indeed a blessed attribute to be such an one, but there's nothing in here about salvation, and definitely not exclusive salvation. To spiritually apply this to the church age would apply to anyone who hears the gospel, if you wanted to spiritually apply it to the church age. Psalm 78:67, moreover, he refused the tabernacle of Joseph and chose not the tribe of Ephraim. Ephraim here is not chosen because of a condition, which condition is stated in Psalm 78:9-11 if you just back up earlier in the chapter. Psalm 78:68, but he chose the tribe of Judah, the Mount Zion which he loved. Now he chose the tribe of Judah to serve in a certain capacity, not to be the only saved tribe. Okay? They have a certain function, certain designation, certain thing to do, certain thing to serve as, certain thing to be. Psalm 78:70, he chose David, also his servant, and took him from the sheepfolds, not for salvation, but to be king and the progenitor of the Messiah. Psalm 84:10, for in a day that in thy courts is better than 1,000, I had rather be a doorkeeper. So this rather shows a preference for one thing over another. This is not used to indicate arbitrary or unconditional choosing, and a person is the one having the preference. Psalm 89:19, then thou speakest in a vision to thy Holy One, and says, I have laid help upon one that is mighty, I have exalted one out of the people. Out of his people is not randomly or arbitrarily with no regard whatsoever to any condition, such as among what people he would be found. All right? So it's selective, non-Calvinistic selection. Psalm 105:26, he sent Moses his servant and Aaron whom he had chosen. And again, you see here, being chosen is interchangeable with servant. Psalm 119:30, I have chosen the way of truth, thy judgments have I laid before me. A human, David, chose the way of truth during a time when no one is being regenerated. Disproves total depravity. Psalm 119:173, let thine hand help me, for I have chosen thy precepts. David chose God's precepts and uses that as leverage to invoke God's help, two things that oppose Calvinism. Proverbs 1:29, for that they hated knowledge and did not choose the fear of the Lord, is a clear implication that they could have, and it would have resulted in something other than hating knowledge if they would have. Proverbs 8:10, receive my instruction, not silver and knowledge, rather than choice gold. Choice shows how this word is used as preferred, tested, preferable, rather than arbitrary and unconditional. It's not a word with a sacred, limited use. Proverbs 8:19, my fruit is better than gold, yea, than fine gold, and my revenue than choice silver. Again, it shows how the word is used. It is preferred, tested, preferable, rather than arbitrary and unconditional. Proverbs 10:20, the tongue of the just is as choice silver. Same comment as the previous verse. Proverbs 16:16, and to get understanding rather to be chosen than silver, is spoken at a time when no one is being regenerated. Clearly, anyone has the capacity to choose something good. Proverbs 23:1, to do justice and judgment is more acceptable to the Lord than sacrifice. So sometimes the same Hebrew word, H977 bahar, shows up as something that's more acceptable. That's not arbitrary and unconditional. It meets a value judgment that is deemed to be better or higher than something else. So this shows a clear preference. The word is not used for arbitrary and unconditional selection. Ecclesiastes 9:4, for to him that is joined to all the living there is hope. For a living dog is better than a dead lion. Now, joined to the living or found among the living gives a sense of how this word can be employed, which is a far cry from any doctrine of election. Song of Solomon 1:5, his legs are as pillars of marble set upon sockets of fine gold. His countenance is as Lebanon, excellent as the cedars. Excellent shows how this word is used as preferred, tested, preferable, rather than arbitrary and conditional. Isaiah 7:15-16, butter and honey shall he eat, that he may know to refuse the evil and choose the good. For before the child shall know to refuse the evil and choose the good, the land that thou abhorrest shall be forsaken of both of her kings. It is conditional, and it doesn't take place in eternity. And it's also talking about the Messiah. So the Messiah is going to do something so that he can learn. Yeah, the Messiah learns according to Hebrews chapter 2. Anyway, look that up one day when you get a chance. And he's going to choose something in time. Isaiah 14:1, for the Lord will have mercy on Jacob and will yet choose Israel and set them in their own land, and the strangers shall be joined with them, and they shall cleave unto the house of Jacob. Set in their own land is a result of being chosen. Salvation is not the result of being chosen. Being set in their own land is the result. Isaiah 41:8, but thou, Israel, art my servant, Jacob, whom I have chosen. So you have Israel and Jacob are connected, servant and chosen are connected. Shows that chosen is interchangeable with servant, just as Israel is interchangeable with Jacob. That's a Hindiati where you say the same thing twice in two different ways, separated either by the word and or by a comma. And that's a figure of speech. And so chosen is another way to say servant, which that's where our idea comes from, by the way, is from Scripture, that people are chosen to serve, not chosen to be saved. Isaiah 41:9, to whom I would have taken from the ends of the earth and called thee from the chief men thereof, and said unto thee, thou art my servant, I have chosen thee and not cast thee away. From the chief men implies that the existence of the chief men, so it is not from before the foundation of the world, and it is conditional and not unconditional. God was choosing among a certain subset, not strictly arbitrarily. In Isaiah 41:24, behold, ye are of nothing, and your work of naught, an abomination is he that chooseth you. Clearly, any choosing would be conditional in this case, and they are not exhibiting behavior commensurate with being chosen. Isaiah 43:10, ye are my witnesses, saith the Lord, and my servant whom I have chosen, that ye may know and believe and understand that I am he. Before me there was no God formed, neither shall there be any after me. So servant is connected with chosen, and people are chosen to serve, not to be saved. Isaiah 44:1, again, servant is interchangeable with elect here, with chosen. Jacob, my servant, and Israel, whom I have chosen. It's the same thing stated twice using different words. And chosen and servant are what's interchanged there. Isaiah 44:2, thus saith the Lord that made thee and formed thee from the womb, which will help thee. Fear not, O Jacob, my servant, and thou Jeshurun, whom I have chosen. That's another word for Jacob. From the womb, not from eternity past. Notice that. From the womb. That's when the choosing takes place. From the womb. Isaiah 48:10, behold, I have refined thee, but not with silver. I have chosen thee in the furnace of affliction. So it's not unconditional. It's in the furnace of affliction. Ezekiel 25, thus saith the Lord God, in the day when I chose Israel. So in the day, that is not eternity past, took place in a day. Haggai 2:23, in that day, saith the Lord. Again, it's chosen in time for a specific purpose. Will I take thee, O Zerubbabel, my servant, the son of Shealtiel, saith the Lord, and will make thee as a signet, for I have chosen thee, saith the Lord. So he's chosen in time to serve in a certain capacity, not chosen in eternity past. Now we're going to go to the second Hebrew word, and that was the longest one, by the way. The second Hebrew word, H972, bachira, okay? Chosen, implied God's chosen. That's probably theology being read back into the lexicon, or chosen one. 2 Samuel 21:6, whom the Lord did choose. And that's being chosen to serve as king. And then we've been over a different Hebrew word being used for something very similar. So some of these we've pretty much been over the same concept several times. Here, 1 Chronicles 16:13, O ye seed of Israel, his servant, ye children of Jacob, his chosen. The same thing stated twice. Again, servant is interchangeable with chosen, just as Israel is interchangeable with Jacob. So chosen to serve, not chosen to be saved. Isaiah in Psalm 89:3, I have made a covenant with my chosen. I have sworn unto David my servant. It's used interchangeably with servant again. David is definitely not the only saved person. The chosen here indicates the service capacity as ruler of Israel and progenitor of the Messiah, not the only person being saved. Psalm 106:5, that I may see the good of thy chosen, that I may rejoice in the gladness of thy nation, that I may glory with thine inheritance. This one is a reference to God's chosen people, and it looks like I have a typo here where I put the wrong comment under this verse. There you go for human error. That's why you need to download the file and put your own comments in there. In Psalm 126, verse 3, therefore he said he would destroy them, had not Moses, his chosen, stood before him in the breach. Moses was chosen, definitely not the only person saved of his day. Isaiah 42:1. Now this is a big one because it gets quoted in the New Testament. Behold my servant whom I uphold, mine elect, in whom my soul delighteth. This is definitely talking about Jesus Christ as we see it in the New Testament. And here we see that elect is interchangeable with servant. Now if you're looking for the word elect, the English word elect shows up for the first time here in Isaiah 42:1. And what you get from it is that it's interchangeable with servant. So that law of first mention should color your vision from there on out that election is associated so far with Israel, chosen is, and the word elect is associated so far with servant. And that's how you should see the word moving forward. Somebody chosen to serve in a certain capacity. Servant. Isaiah 43:20, the beasts of the field shall honor me, the dragons and the owls, because I give waters in the wilderness and the rivers in the desert to give drink to my people, my chosen. Definitely talking about Israel the same way, like in Matthew 1:21, Calvinists think that that's talking about them because they're me-centered. They think everything's about them, but it's still talking about Israel, God's chosen people. Save his people from their sins. Talking about Israel. Isaiah 65:9, and I will bring forth a seed out of Jacob and out of Judah, an inheritor of my mountains, and mine elect shall inherit it. They're chosen to serve. And mine elect shall inherit it, and my servants shall dwell there. So that, again, elect and servants are interchangeable. Shows you that people are elected to serve. Now we're going to get into the Greek words. Now we're finally moving into the New Testament. All right, we're looking at the Greek word eklogamai, and that is call, name, to choose, to select, to pick out. And there are 20 of these occurrences in Mark 13:20. And except the Lord hath shortened those days, no flesh should be saved, but for the elect's sake, whom he hath chosen, he hath shortened those days. And of course, Calvinists think that that's about them, and which means, of course, it's not. It is about Israel in the last days, and the Gentile church isn't even going to be there at the time. If you look at Zechariah 13:8, and it shall come to pass in that land, saith the Lord, 2 parts therein shall be cut off and die, but the third shall be left therein. What does that mean? When Hitler was doing his thing, he killed 1/3 of the Jews. When the Antichrist is doing his thing, he's going to make Hitler look like an amateur. He's going to get 2/3 of the Jews. So a third shall be left therein, and if those days aren't cut short, but for the elect's sake, no flesh shall be saved. So that whatever the Antichrist is going to be doing at the time has to be cut short for the remnant that's still alive. In Luke 16:13, when it was day, he called unto him his disciples, and of them he chose 12 whom he named apostles. Now they're chosen to be apostles, not to be saved, especially since we know that one of them was not saved. So whenever you, like, ye have not chosen me, but I have chosen you. He's talking to the apostles. He chose 12 apostles to be apostles, not to be saved. Because there were other people who got saved that weren't the apostles. So think about those things. Think about why somebody was chosen. What are they chosen for? And it's never salvation. It's always for something else. Luke 10:42, but one thing is needful, and Mary hath chosen that good part which shall be not taken away from her. The Holy Spirit is not yet given, according to John 7:39, so an unregenerate person is choosing something good. That does not jive too well with Calvinism. In John 6:70, Jesus answered them and said, have not I chosen you 12, and one of you is a devil? So one of them is a devil, but to be chosen to be an apostle, that's the capacity of service, does not mean chosen to be saved. Now compare that with John 15:16. And, you have not chosen me, but I have chosen you. Who did he choose? He chose 12, one of which was a devil, which is not saved, an unsaved person who went to his own place, all right? A bad place. John 15:16, ye have not chosen me, but I have chosen you and ordained you. Now, who's he talking to here? Is there any reason to make you think that that's talking to somebody in April of 2019? Absolutely not. Only a Calvinist who is absolutely self-centered and egotistical would think that that part is about him, because he has no concept of context whatsoever. Has absolutely nothing to do with anybody today, Jew or Gentile. He's talking to the disciples. He's talking to them. You have not chosen me, but I have chosen you and ordained you that you should go and bring forth fruit, and that your fruit should remain. There we come, okay? The fruit they bring forth, a couple thousand years later almost, several hundred years later. That you should go and bring forth fruit and that your fruit should remain. So not modern day Gentiles, not chosen for salvation, chosen to bring forth fruit, to serve in that capacity. Modern day Gentiles are the fruit for which they were chosen. We are not the ones chosen in this passage. You could say we were chosen according to a different passage, but not this one. John 15:19, if you are of the world would love his own. But because you are not of the world, but I have chosen you out of the world, therefore the world hateth you. So they're chosen as disciples, not as the only saved people. Acts 1:2, until the day in which he was taken up, after that, he through the Holy Ghost had given commandments unto the apostles whom he had chosen. Chosen to be apostles, not as the only saved people. There are 120 people at the prayer meeting 12 verses later. So the ones chosen are not the only saved people. In Acts 1:24, they prayed and said, thou, Lord, which knowest the hearts of all men, show whether these two thou hast chosen. So they wind up choosing Matthias to replace Judas as an apostle, not choosing anybody to be saved, and not chosen before the foundation of the world. Acts 15:7. And when there had been much disputing, Peter rose up and said unto the men and brethren, ye know how that a good while ago God made choice among us, that Gentiles by my mouth should hear the word of the gospel and believe. It took place at Cornelius' house. So Peter was chosen not for salvation, but to serve in a certain capacity. And it tells you what it is, that Gentiles by his mouth should hear the word of the gospel and believe. So God made choice among them, among those Jews and the other apostles, that Peter should be the one that does that. So that should be very clear. Acts 15:22, then it pleased the apostles and the elders with the whole church to send chosen men of their own company to Antioch with Paul and Barnabas, namely Judas, surnamed Barsabbas, and Silas, chief men among the brethren. Not for salvation, but they're chosen to serve in a certain capacity. Acts 15:25, they assembled with one accord to send chosen men to you with our beloved Barnabas and Paul. And again, men chose other men, not for salvation, but to serve in a certain capacity. 1 Corinthians 1:27, but God hath chosen the foolish things of the world to confound the wise, and God hath chosen the weak things of the world to confound the things which are mighty. So things are chosen here, not people, and this choosing is conditional. God is choosing foolish things, not things before the foundation of the world that have not yet been foolish or wise. But he's choosing foolish things, very conditional, very non-Calvinistic. 1 Corinthians 1:28, and the base things of this world and the things which are despised hath God chosen, yea, and the things which are not to bring to naught the things that are. And again, things are chosen here, not people, and this choosing is conditional. God is choosing base things, not things before the foundation of the world, which have not yet been base or sophisticated. Ephesians 1:4, according as he hath chosen us in him before the foundation of the world, that we should be holy and without blame before him in love. In him, no one is in him before they are in him. See Romans 16:7 and Ephesians 2:12. The choosing is in service capacity, not in salvation. The vocational walk is the theme of this book. And what's the service capacity? That we should be holy and without blame before him in love. That's the service capacity, not for salvation. James 2:5, hearken, my beloved brethren, hath not God chosen the poor of this world rich in faith and heirs of the kingdom which he hath promised to them that love him? So the poor of this world is a condition. This choosing is not unconditional, and it occurs within the time frame of this world, not before it. Now Strong's Greek 1588, eklektos, and it occurs 23 times, chosen, elect, picked out, and select. Matthew 21:16, for many be called, but few are chosen. So the last shall be first, and the first last. For many be called, but few chosen. Shall is future tense. Called is no match for inward. All right, some people say there's an inward call. No. And it's for wages in this case, not for salvation. And it's conditional in the parable. Matthew 22:14, many are called, but few are chosen. And that's also conditional in the parable. I like to take this called here whenever a Calvinist takes the called out of Romans 8:29, I'll take the called out of Matthew 22:14, and then we'll have a conversation. So that can be interesting sometimes. Matthew 24:22, except those days should be shortened, there should be no flesh saved, but for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened. So Israel, servants. Now, we know that Israel, 2/3 of them are going to be killed. We know that, so those days are going to be shortened so that the Israel won't be killed during that time. And it's the last days, the time of Jacob's trouble, not the time of Gentiles' trouble. All right, Gentiles will be gone at that time. Matthew 24:24, there shall arise false Christs, false prophets, shall show great signs and wonders, insomuch that if it were possible, they shall deceive the very elect, and that is Israel and God's servants. Maybe the 144,000, if it were possible, but it has nothing to do with Gentiles in the church age. It's going to be during the time of Jacob's trouble. Mark 13:20. Now, we already saw this. There's two occurrences here. Two different Greek words show up, 1586 and 1588. And except that day the Lord had shortened those days, no flesh should be saved, but for the elect's sake whom he hath chosen. So you have the elect's sake whom he hath chosen. One's one Greek word, one's the other one. And we already looked at Zechariah 13:8, how 2/3 of the Jews are going to be wiped out during that time. And God's going to have to cut that time off so that they don't all get wiped out. Mark 13:22, for false Christs and false prophets shall arise and shall show signs and wonders to seduce, if it were possible, even the elect. Greek 1588. In 2 Thessalonians 2:9 through 10, which we already looked at in the beginning of the video, the deceived people, because they receive not the love of the truth, not deceived due to unconditional election for deception. And we see the verse there, which you can read whenever you get the chance. Mark 13:27 is also talking about the time of Jacob's trouble, gathering his elect from the four winds, which you compare the four winds with Revelation 17:1, whenever you get a chance. Luke 18:7, and shall not God avenge his own elect, which cry day and night unto him, though he bear long with them? So God is not sure if faith will be found when he comes at that time, if you look at the very next verse. So how could God not be sure if faith was going to be found if he was the one authoring and giving the faith? Nevertheless, when the Son of Man cometh, shall he find faith on the earth? So based on the hardships and trials that Israel is going through, God is going to avenge them as promised in the Old Testament. Most of the Messianic prophecies are about that. Luke 23:35, and the people stood beholding, and the rulers also with them derided him, saying, he saved others, let him save himself, if he be the Christ, the chosen one of God. So it is very common understanding that Christ, the anointed one, whoever it was going to be the chosen one of God. And that goes back to Isaiah 42:1. Behold, my servant whom I uphold, mine elect, in whom my soul delighteth, elected to serve in a certain capacity. And then in Matthew chapter 12, verse 17 through 21, that passage is read and very clearly applied to Jesus Christ. Romans 8:33, who shall lay anything to the charge of God's elect? It is God that justifieth. Now this is a reference to the people referenced so far already earlier in the chapter. It's those who are already faithful. It's not pre-faith people who have not believed yet. Who shall lay anything to the charge of God's elect? Calvinists have this concept of elect people as like unsaved people out there who have yet to be reached, and we just don't know who they are yet. But it's always saved people in the context. It's always people already chosen and already with the faith of God's elect, whenever you see it that way. It always shows up that way in Scripture when you see it. Romans 16:13, salute Rufus, chosen in the Lord, and his mother in mind. Those who are already faithful, again, not pre-faith people who haven't believed yet. He's chosen in the Lord, not chosen outside of the Lord. Colossians 3:12. Put on therefore as the elect of God, holy and beloved, bowels of mercies, kindness, humbleness of mind, meekness, long-suffering, as the elect of God. It indicates that these characteristics accompany the elect. That is the purpose, not salvation, that is followed with multiple specifications for how to serve God. 1 Timothy 5:21, elect angels. Now this concept confuses a lot of people. This is not angels chosen to be saved. These are merely ministering spirits, like in Hebrews 1:14, selected to serve in such a capacity that they might witness what Paul is charging Timothy to do. 2 Timothy 2:10, therefore I endure all things for the elect's sakes, that they may also obtain salvation which is in Christ Jesus with eternal glory. Now I have an entire video on 2 Timothy chapter 2, so go check that out when you get a chance. But Paul's goal is to endure all things so that faithful men chosen to be teachers in verses 1 and 2 will obtain their salvation with their reward and not without it. And you can see that other video for more information on that one. Titus 1:1, Paul, a servant of God and apostle of Jesus Christ, according to the faith of God's elect and the acknowledging of the truth which is after godliness. There are no elect people waiting to get faith. God's elect have the faith of God's elect. If they don't have that faith, then they are not God's elect. According to the faith of God's servants is another way to think of that. Now remember, there's a book called The Faith of God's Elect by John Parkinson, which I always recommend, and I'll try to remember to put the link in the description below where you can get that if you want to get a chance of that. And I'm also going to do a video one of these days just talking about that book, and maybe several. 1 Peter 1:2, elect according to the foreknowledge of God the Father through sanctification of the Spirit and obedience and sprinkling of the blood of Jesus Christ, unto obedience and sprinkling of the blood of Jesus Christ, grace be unto you, and peace be multiplied. Peter is the same person that connects calling with election in terms of what they do. In 2 Peter chapter 1, verse 10, and elect according to foreknowledge, even if you understand it Calvinistically there, it does not go with Calvinism there. Even if you take the word election, elect, like a Calvinist would take it, they don't believe in election according to foreknowledge. So that doesn't match Calvinism. So either way you go with that one. 1 Peter 2:9, but ye are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a peculiar people, that ye should show forth the praises of him who hath called you out of darkness into his marvelous light. That ye should show forth, not that ye should be saved. They're chosen to serve in a certain capacity. 2 John 1:1, the elder unto the elect lady and her children, whom I love in the truth. Now this has baffled a lot of people. It could be the church, could be New Jerusalem, could be a local church, could be Mary. That doesn't mean it's baffling me or that I want you to put comments in there trying to tell me who it is. I'm just trying to let you know what the options are, and I'm not trying to talk about this verse in any more detail. Sometimes when I lay options out there, like some people are baffled by something, people think they got to make comments or send me emails or something telling me what something is. I'm trying to be quick when I say comments like that and not delve into the exegesis of this passage to let you know what it is. But it would not support Calvinism, that's for sure. 2 John 1:13, the children of thy elect sister greet thee. And it could be, a sister church? And then we'll go to Greek Strong's 1589, echlege. Acts 9:15, but the Lord said unto him, this is Paul, the Apostle Paul's conversion experience, for he is a chosen vessel unto me to be saved. No, to do something, to serve in a certain capacity, to bear my name before the Gentiles and kings and the children of Israel. He is chosen for this specific role, not just to be saved. Romans 9:11, for the children being not yet born, neither having done any good or evil, for the purpose of God according to election might stand. That the purpose of God according to election might stand, not of works, but of him that calleth. Now this election was while they were in the womb, before they were born, not before they were conceived, and not before the foundation of the world, and not for salvation, but for a birthright. And you can see Genesis 25:31-34, 27:36, and Hebrews 12:16 for more information on that. But one more point I want to make, the only time the word election shows up in Romans 9:11 is when Jacob is being chosen over Esau. It does not show up for any, I have a whole video on Romans 9 that I just did recently, but it's not talking about any Gentiles in April of 2019 being elected for or against anything, or not being selected or being hardened or anything like that. It's specifically about Jacob. God can choose who he wants, and if he wants to harden Israel and not make them privileged anymore and allow Gentiles to come without having to keep the law of Moses or be circumcised, there's nothing you can do to stop it because he is God. Unless you're a Calvinist, then God loses his sovereignty when he says such things. Romans 11:5, even so then at this present time there is also a remnant according to the election of grace. Now the election of grace is exercised by Romans 3:24, 4:5, 5:2, and Romans 10:3-4. It is, instead of God electing Israel as God's chosen people, the only ones that are saved, you have to be a proselyte to Judaism in order to be saved, be circumcised and keep the law of Moses. Here, the election of grace is God opening up the doors and not requiring that anymore. That is the election of grace. So a Jew would have to repent from their dead works and have their conscience purged from dead works, and then repent of those dead works and the weak and beggarly elements and go in faith rather than through works. That's the election of grace. In other words, God is working through people who trust him by faith, not through people who are keeping the law. Romans 11:7, what then hath Israel not obtained that which he seeketh for? But the election hath obtained it, and the rest were blinded. And in the context, it's very clear that's the election of grace exercised by those passages as you see here, and that's the Jews that have repented from their dead works and are trusting Christ. Romans 11:28 is concerning the gospel, they are enemies for your sakes, but touching the election, they are beloved for the Father's sakes. These are Christ-rejecting enemies of the gospel referred to as the election. Definitely not a reference to people chosen for salvation. 1 Thessalonians 1:4, knowing, beloved brethren, your election of God. Now, that election that Paul knows about the Thessalonians is their specific capacity for service as detailed in 1 Thessalonians 1:8-10. The word of the Lord sounded out from them in all of Macedonia and Achaia. That's what they were elected to do. All the Christians in that area, not the individuals chosen before the foundation of the world to be saved, but that church in that area chosen to spread out the word from there in that area. 2 Peter 1:10, wherefore the rather, brethren, give diligence to make your calling and election sure, for if you do these things, you shall never fall. So calling is the vocational calling of the saved person, and their election is the capacity which they were elected to serve. It's what they're supposed to do. In other words, make your vocation and capacity of service sure. That is completely reliable without fail. If election is understood Calvinistically here, it undermines Calvinism as it clearly specifies that the surety of the election is in the hands and the responsibility of the audience of the letter. So we have gone through every passage where the word elect or chosen shows up in one of the original languages, and we have done a word occurrence analysis. In the future, we're going to do a video where we go into the details of chosen and service, and we're going to make the case that election means being chosen for service and blessing, not being chosen for salvation. So we're going to make that case. But in this video, what we did is that we demonstrated very clearly that we have looked at and considered every single passage that contains one of these words that the Calvinist thinks is a buzzword is one of their opportunities to import a whole system of thinking into the context rather than look at the context and what it says. So stay tuned for that. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you get a hold of these files and take them back to your church and use them. Now, as I'm going through this, filming this, I have found a lot of typos in what I've done, okay? So I'm trying to give you a quality product, but I'm not a perfect person, and there are probably going to be some typos in here, but you'll be able to correct those typos when you open up the file if I don't get to them first. So I'll go correct the ones that I have to correct. I'll post the files with the corrections that I've made so far, and then we can go from there. So you're probably going to see some typos and that sort of thing. So remember to share this video. Remember to go to Facebook and like us. And our website is www.beyondthefundamentals.com, and links to these files and instructions will be in the class notes section of the page. Thanks for watching. May the Lord bless you, and good day.